What's going on, guys? It's me. Kind of a stress-free weekend here. Neither of my teams play. Seahawks play Monday. Huskies play Thursday. And, it's just about getting time to talk about the Lions game. But before I do that, which I'll probably do tomorrow or maybe Monday afternoon, I want to talk about some stuff with this team after 3 games. Because I'm a big believer in statistics and numbers. There are football fans out there who will tell you that, you have to watch and the eye test is the only thing that matters and, this and that and the statistics are just some bullshit for fantasy football fans and you can't look at numbers and expect to get anything meaningful, but I kind of come in on the other side of that. I believe that the numbers, the statistics produced out of a football game will tell you everything you need to know, or at least 99.9% of it. Maybe those numbers aren't going to be easy to find. Maybe they're going to be advanced metrics. Maybe they're going to be obscure. Maybe that statistic hasn't even been invented yet. But I believe that if you believe that a team or a unit or a player is playing well or playing poorly, you should be able to find a way to back that up. Maybe the stat you find is not something that you see on ESPN or NFL.com or anything like that, but there should be some way to quantifiably show that what you see is what is actually happening out there. And if your eyes tell you one thing and the statistics tell you something else, I think the odds are likely that you're just not looking at things right, or you're looking at the wrong things. Or maybe you're looking at the wrong numbers, but there are numbers out there that will back up how you feel, if you are correct. There are countless examples of this throughout football history alone. Tony Romo developed this reputation of being, coming up small in the fourth quarter, and he leads the league in fourth quarter comebacks since he became a starter. And you also have other stuff like that too. I could go on, but I say all this because I saw some numbers this week on field goals that really caught my attention. And field goals, for those of you who don't know, is the SB Nation blog for Seahawks fans. They have blogs for, I think, every team in every major sport. And these stats actually originally come from Pro Football Focus, but I saw them posted on field goals. So basically, I want to talk about our lines because this was really interesting to me. Our offensive line and our defensive line. Now, I'll start with the defensive line because I said in my last video that it seems like they're struggling a little bit, that they're not getting the push, they're not filling their lanes, they're not getting as much pass rush as they should. And then I saw these numbers, and I was kind of surprised by this. So let me go through this real quick. Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett through 3 games. This is before the Thursday night game, but Steelers-Ravens. Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett, according to Pro Football Focus, their metrics, they are number 1 and number 2 in pass rush productivity for 4-3 defensive ends. I think Averill is number 1 and Bennett is number 2. They're the 2 best pass rushing 4-3 defensive ends in football through 3 games. Between them, they have 30 total pressures. That's 10 a game through 3 games, just from your 2 starting defensive ends. That doesn't count everybody else. That is absolutely mind-blowing to me. Watching the games, I didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like they were playing that well. I felt like the teams we were playing were getting better consistent pressure against us than we were against them, but I look at these numbers, and right now those are the 2 best guys. And I know they benefit a little bit because they played the Bears, but they also had to play the Packers in Lambeau. And the Packers have one of the few good offensive lines in football this year. So that caught my eye. And then I saw another one. Atiba Rubin, I'm sure I butchered his name, the defensive tackle who got here this offseason. I think we got him from Cleveland. Atiba Rubin has a 14.8 run stop rate. That means, I believe, on 14.8, or let's call it 15% of the running plays he plays against, he's generating a stop. That is fifth best in the league among 4-3 defensive tackles so far. He's already had almost as many stops through 3 games as Brandon Mebane did last year through, I think, 10 or 9 or 10 before he got hurt. Yeah, I think he got hurt in game number 9. So Ruben, who I haven't really noticed this season, has been dominant against the run. He's been one of the 5 best defensive tackles against the run so far this year. And then I saw another number. Jordan Hill. I'm a big fan of Jordan Hill. He beasted out for us the second half of last year. You know, if it wasn't for him, we would not have gone on that run to end the season last year where we won the last 6 regular season games and gave up like 6.5 points per game. Without Hill, he was a monster, and I've noticed him making plays this year, and I've been happy with what he's done so far. But I didn't know it was this good. Jordan Hill currently has the 6th best run stop percentage among 4-3 defensive ends. So basically, Ruben is 5th and Hill is 6th. That's what I was able to get from the statistics that I saw. So they're both top 10, both nearly top 5. And on top of that, Jordan Hill has the highest pass rushing productivity this season among defensive tackles in a 4-3 defense. He has 1 hit and 5 hurries on 37 pass rushes. It's a small sample size. We're 3 games in, but I'm going to be going somewhere with this. So Jordan Hill has, through 3 games, been the most productive pass rusher among 3-4 defensive tackles. And Frank Clark, backup defensive end, he's going to play more and more snaps as the season goes on. We know this. And this is a very small sample size, so I don't want to go crazy about this. But he has played 18 run snaps this season so far. And his run stop rate is 11%, which is 6th best among 3-4 defensive ends. Now, that's such a small sample size, you barely even really need to talk about it. But I've been watching Frank Clark this season, and I think he's done pretty well when he gets in the game. He obviously doesn't play a ton because he's got 2 monsters in front of him, but my point is this. The eye test tells me the defensive line hasn't played that well this season. I look at these numbers, and these are quantifiable numbers. They're not they're not subjective grades. They're not subjectively handed out by people who are just making judgments based off what they see. They are objective stats generated by what these players are doing in a game. And I think we have the best defensive line in football through 3 games. There's no defensive line that has this collection of players putting up these kinds of numbers through 3 games. You've got all 3 of your defensive ends are showing up. You've got 2 defensive tackles showing up. Mebane, I didn't see numbers on Brandon Mebane, and obviously he's hurt now, so we'll see what we get from him the rest of the way. He might play Monday. He might not. I don't think he will. But, this should make us Seahawks fans feel really good about where this team is going. Because if this defensive line plays like this the whole rest of the way, if Averill, Bennett, and Hill continue to generate this elite level of pass rush, and Clark and Ruben hold their own, and Mebane has a good season because he's playing for his last contract in all likelihood, we can win every game we play. We will have the opportunity to win every game we play with this kind of defensive line. And it also tells me the defensive line has not been the problem through 3 games. I remember the year we won the Super Bowl. I went back and I looked at these numbers. The NFC Championship game against San Francisco. Now, Colin Kaepernick killed us in that game with his legs. He had 130 yards rushing. He was a monster in that game running. But Frank Gore had about 11 carries for 14 yards. He did nothing. We took him out of the game on the ground. Other than Kaepernick, they did nothing on the ground. And then the Super Bowl, 2 weeks later, Noshawn Moreno had like 7 carries for 13 yards, I think, and Monty Ball had like 3 carries for 5 yards. The Broncos had like 30 yards rushing in that game. And obviously the game got out of hand quickly and they couldn't even try to run the ball. Point is, that's where we need to get back to. And the defensive line we have is good enough to do it. So these first 3 games, I've seen James Starks have some success against us. I've seen Matt Forte have a little success against us. We shut him down in the second half, but the first half he was pretty good. So with this defensive line, we should be as good as we were that Super Bowl season. And I haven't seen it yet. And this goes back to what I said about the linebackers. The linebackers on this team are great. They're one of the best units in football. They have not played like it through 3 games. They've been getting better with each game. They were terrible against the Rams. They were good against the Packers. They were great against the Bears, but they need to get better than that. Bobby Wagner's the second highest paid middle linebacker in football. KJ Wright's making $7 million a year. Bruce Irvin's playing for his contract. Whatever he gets this year is going to dictate what he gets in free agency. So those guys need to get it together, because with this kind of defensive line in front of them, there's no reason why they shouldn't all have career years. And it hasn't happened quite yet, but this defensive line should give us all a lot of faith that good things are going to happen. Sorry about that, camera. Whatever. Pay $100 for a webcam and can't even hold in focus sometimes. Anyway, we can win every game we play. Not that we will, but we will have the opportunity to win every game we play with a defensive line that is playing as well as this one is through 3 games, even though we're 1-2, which is why I call out the linebackers a little bit. They need to do better. They need to step their game up, because I've seen them play a lot better than I've seen them play this year. I know they can do it. They just got to do it. The last statistic I want to bring up is on the other line, the offensive line, because this offensive line gets raked through the mud in the media, among the fans, everywhere, because it's bad. It's especially bad in pass blocking. It's been a little disappointing so far this year in run blocking, maybe. I think they'll get better at that, but the pass blocking has been ugly through 3 games. They were terrible against St. Louis. I thought they were pretty bad against Chicago until the 3rd and 4th quarters. They got a little better. But we kill this offensive line. So I saw this number. Through 3 games, our team, our offense as a whole, in pass block efficiency, and this is a grade, this is a subjective measure of what makes an offensive line and a team good at pass blocking. This is subjective. They rank 24th. They have allowed 6 quarterback hits, I'm assuming that's not counting sacks, and 32 quarterback hurries. 24th is pretty bad. 24th is not horrible, but it's bad. The fact that there are 8 teams that have had a worse season pass blocking this year, I think that's very illuminating, because you watch this team through 3 games and you'd swear we have the 32nd best offensive line in football in pass blocking. Like, you would swear it wouldn't even be a contest. We've given up 12 sacks. The only team in the league that's given up that many is Tennessee. Wilson seems like he's getting clobbered every time he drops back to pass. I saw some good protections in the second half of the Bears game when they were rushing 3 and occasionally rushing 4. But sometimes it doesn't seem like the guys know who to block. Sometimes they do know who to block and just get their ass whipped when they try to do it. And yet there are 8 NFL teams that are statistically doing worse. I don't know if this should make us feel better, but I think the lesson here is that offensive lines in the NFL suck right now. And I've heard this conversation on the radio with Brock Heward and John Clayton, and I kind of want to repeat what they feel, because they've had a couple of illuminating things to say about this, is that our offensive line is bad, but offensive lines in the NFL are bad. There are 6 good offensive lines this year. Dallas, Green Bay, and all 4 teams in the AFC North. Everyone else, they're average to terrible. Like, I don't think the Patriots have a very good offensive line. I think they run the spread, which mitigates that, which kind of stems back to the problem of all these college football teams running the spread. So offensive linemen aren't learning how to play the position, because offensive linemen in the spread don't have to do anything but stand there. So you're seeing these guys who go to the NFL, but they're not really ready to play offensive line in the NFL. And that's bled over into creating a lot of lackluster offensive lines in the pro game right now. So the line is bad, but we can join a long list of teams that have bad offensive lines, is my point. So, to anyone who thinks that having the bad pass blocking offensive line will kill our season, that may end up being the case, but we are better equipped to deal with a bad pass blocking offensive line than many other teams because we have a mobile quarterback who knows how to make pass rushers miss. We have a couple good running backs who know how to catch the ball, Lynch and especially Fred Jackson. We have a safety valve in Jimmy Graham, and with time, I believe that things will get a little better. Maybe by the end of the year, we'll be around 20th in pass blocking efficiency, and that'll be below average, but it'll be good enough. So I just wanted to go over those numbers real quick because I found them pretty interesting and pretty illuminating. So I'll talk about the Lions game tomorrow or Monday. I got some things to say about it, but just wanted to share some interesting information I found. See you later.